ExamPrep.School. Rhode Island Workers' Compensation Insurance Adjuster Exam, exam code InsRI-WC18 or OPWC18. There are 6 practice exams in this series. This video covers Practice Exam 1. The first 20 questions are free. In this video, we will be covering the following major categories for Practice Exam 1. Rhode Island laws, rules, and regulations. Workers' comp insurance, employer's liability, and related issues. Workers' compensation. Workers' compensation. Workers' compensation. Let's walk through the format. I'll read each question and its choices. Let's get started. Question 1. Which statement best distinguishes statutory workers' compensation insurance from employer's liability coverage? A. Workers' compensation insurance provides no-fault benefits for workplace injuries under statutory schedules, including medical and indemnity payments to employees, whereas employer's liability coverage applies to employers' common law liability for claims not covered by statutory benefits. B. Employer's liability coverage includes supplementary payments for regulatory fines, compliance penalties, and legal defense costs, whereas workers' compensation covers medical, disability, and rehabilitation benefits under statutory provisions. C. Workers' compensation insurance covers wage loss and medical benefits under a statutory schedule, whereas employer's liability provides coverage for punitive damages and third-party lawsuits arising from employee claims. D. Employer's liability coverage applies exclusively to employers' legal defense and settlement costs for employee tort claims, while workers' compensation covers employee disability wage loss, medical treatment, and vocational rehabilitation expenses. A countdown circle appears in the top right. Once it completes, the answer is revealed. You can pause at any time if you'd like longer to think. If you'd like additional practice covering more topics, see the description for our book. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is that statutory workers' compensation provides no-fault medical and indemnity benefits under a preset schedule, while employer's liability responds to common lawsuits and damages outside the statutory scheme. Reason B is not correct. This description incorrectly attributes regulatory fines and compliance penalties coverage to employer's liability, which does not cover statutory benefit payments under workers' compensation. Reason C is not correct. This distractor misstates that employer's liability covers punitive damages and third-party lawsuits as its primary function instead of common law liability gaps. Reason D is not correct. This option erroneously limits employer's liability to legal defense costs and mischaracterizes workers' compensation as covering settlement expenses rather than scheduled statutory benefits. Question 2. An employer asks an adjuster where to find the policy period, premium basis, and limits for a workers' compensation policy. Which section of the policy should the adjuster consult? A. Insuring agreement section. B. Declarations page. C. Conditions section. D. Endorsement section. The correct answer is B. The declarations page lists the policy period, premium basis, and coverage limits, making it the correct section to reference for that information. Reason A is not correct. The insuring agreement describes the insurer's promise to pay but does not list policy period or premium basis. Reason C is not correct. The conditions section outlines duties and obligations but does not show coverage limits or premium details. Reason D is not correct. Endorsements modify terms but do not display the base policy's period, premium basis, or limits. Question 3. A worker sues their employer for negligence in maintaining safe machinery despite receiving workers' compensation benefits. Under the exclusive remedy doctrine, how does the employer's liability part of the policy respond? A. It reimburses the employer for paid no-fault benefits only. B. It provides coverage for defense and damages in negligent suits by employees. C. It extends statutory benefits beyond covered employees to independent contractors. D. It covers punitive damages awarded for employer wrongdoing. The correct answer is B. Employer's liability coverage steps in to cover legal defense costs and any damages awarded when an employee sues the employer for negligence, filling the gap left by the no-fault workers' compensation benefits. Reason A is not correct. It does more than reimburse no-fault benefits. It covers defense and liability for suits. Reason C is not correct. It does not extend benefits to independent contractors. It protects the employer against employee lawsuits. Reason D is not correct. Punitive damages are typically excluded under employer liability coverage. Question 4. Under workers' compensation law, which of the following criteria best distinguishes a work-related injury from a non-work-related injury? A. An injury occurring during an unpaid break on employer premises. B. A condition arising solely from non-occupational activities outside work hours. C. Any injury that arises out of and in the course of employment. D. A disability resulting from travel between home and workplace. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is any injury that arises out of and in the course of employment, because work-related injuries must satisfy both a causal connection and occurrence within the employment context. Reason A is not correct. An injury during an unpaid break can be non-work-related if it lacks a causal connection to work activities. Reason B is not correct. A condition from purely non-occupational activities is expressly excluded from coverage. Reason D is not correct. Travel between home and work generally falls under the going and coming rule and is excluded from coverage. Question 5. Under the personal deviation doctrine in workers' compensation, which of the following scenarios best exemplifies a personal deviation? A. A worker making a short detour to purchase coffee at a cafe 2 blocks from the assigned route. B. A driver stopping at a rest station as authorized by company policy for scheduled breaks. C. An employee deviating substantially from the required route to visit a friend without employer benefit. D. A courier altering route to deliver an additional urgent package requested by management. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is an employee's substantial departure from the required route for personal reasons with no employer benefit, which defines a personal deviation. Reason A is not correct. A minor detour for coffee is typically viewed as incidental to employment and may remain covered. Reason B is not correct. Stopping at an authorized rest station is within company-approved activities, not a personal deviation. Reason D is not correct. Altering a route to deliver an employer-requested package benefits the employer and stays within the course of employment. Question 6. Carla, a packaging machine operator at a manufacturing plant, cleans up oil leaking from her assigned machine onto a shop floor walkway during her shift. After clocking out at the end of the day, she carries her toolbox along the same walkway and slips on residual oil that she had cleaned earlier, fracturing her wrist. Based solely on the concept of arising out of employment, which statement is correct regarding compensability of Carla's injury? A. The injury arises out of employment because the hazard was a direct result of her job duties that created the oily condition. B. The injury does not arise out of employment because the incident occurred after she had left the premises following her shift. C. The injury does not arise out of employment because she cleaned the spill and thus removed the causal hazard. D. The injury arises out of employment because it occurred in the same workplace, regardless of causation. The correct answer is A. The correct answer explains that the oily condition which caused the slip was a direct consequence of machine operation during her employment, fulfilling the causal nexus required for arising out of employment. The timing of the accident after clocking out does not sever that causal connection. Reason B is not correct. Time of day or departure from premises does not break the causal link between the job-created hazard and the injury. Reason C is not correct. Cleaning the spill does not negate that the hazardous condition originally arose from machine operation during her duties. Reason D is not correct. Location alone is insufficient. There must be a causal relationship between the work activity and the hazard. Question 7. Which of the following patterns is most indicative of potential workers' compensation fraud during a claim investigation? A. Prolonged delay in reporting the alleged work-related injury beyond statutory notification periods. B. Independent medical examinations yielding objective diagnostic evidence supporting the claimed injury. C. Consistent, corroborated eyewitness testimonies aligning precisely with the claimant's initial accident description. D. Recurrent filings by the identical claimant for analogous minor ailments occurring in rapid succession. The correct answer is D. Recurrent filings by the same claimant for similar minor injuries in rapid succession often indicate a pattern of fraudulent behavior, as genuine injuries rarely manifest repeatedly under analogous circumstances within short timeframes. Reason A is not correct. Delayed reporting alone does not necessarily indicate fraud, since legitimate injuries may be reported late due to delayed symptom onset or administrative misunderstandings. Reason B is not correct. Objective diagnostic evidence from an independent examination supports the authenticity of an injury rather than suggesting fraudulent activity. Reason C is not correct. Corroborated eyewitness statements that align with the claimant's account reinforce credibility and do not serve as fraud indicators. Question 8. An employee submitting a workers' compensation claim omits mention of a prior back injury in order to increase the likelihood of approval. During the investigation, the insurer discovers the omission and determines it was intentional. What consequence may the insurer impose under workers' compensation fraud provisions? A. Forfeit all benefits for the fraudulent claim and refer the matter for criminal prosecution. B. Deny the current claim but continue providing coverage for any future work-related injuries. C. Cancel the employer's workers' compensation policy immediately. D. Adjust the benefit payment calculations but continue paying indemnity benefits. The correct answer is A. This option is correct because intentional misrepresentation on a claim form constitutes fraud, enabling the insurer to deny all benefits on that claim and pursue criminal penalties against the claimant. Reason B is not correct. This distractor is incorrect because the insurer's right goes beyond denying only the current claim. It can pursue fraud penalties rather than simply maintain coverage. Reason C is not correct. This distractor is incorrect because employee misrepresentation on a claim does not permit cancellation of the employer's entire policy. Reason D is not correct. This distractor is incorrect because fraud permits complete denial of indemnity benefits, not merely adjustment of payments. Question 9. Pursuant to RI. GL 28-35-20. Which of the following best describes the jurisdiction conferred upon the Rhode Island Workers' Compensation Court? A. Conducting original fact-finding for initial compensability determinations. B. Adjudicating appeals from final decisions issued by the director or hearing examiners. C. Setting and enforcing provider fee schedules for medical treatments. D. Approving premium rate filings submitted by workers' compensation insurers. The correct answer is B. The statute specifically vests the Workers' Compensation Court with authority to hear and decide appeals from final orders of the director or hearing examiners, making that its primary jurisdictional function. Reason A is not correct. Original fact-finding for initial compensability is handled by hearing examiners, not by the court on appeal. Reason C is not correct. Fee schedule administration is governed by separate administrative rules, not by the court's appellate jurisdiction. Reason D is not correct. Premium rate approval is undertaken by the insurance commissioner, not by the Workers' Compensation Court. Question 10. A claimant under the Federal Employees Compensation Act received a formal denial letter dated September 13th, which was delivered on September 15th. What is the last date the claimant may timely request a hearing? A. September 30th of that year. B. October 13th of that year. C. October 15th of that year. D. October 31st of that year. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is based on the requirement to request a hearing within 30 calendar days of receipt. The letter was received on September 15th, so counting 30 days yields October 15th as the final timely date. Reason A is not correct. That date is only 15 days after receipt, which is shorter than the 30-day requirement. Reason B is not correct. That date counts 30 days from the date on the letter rather than the date it was received. Reason D is not correct. That date exceeds the 30-day window, making it untimely. Question 11. According to InsRI-WC18, medical benefits for a compensable injury are defined as services that are A. Recommended solely by the employee's chosen physician. B. Limited to emergency treatment provided within 24 hours of injury. C. Diagnostic services only, regardless of treatment needs. D. Medically necessary and reasonably required to cure or relieve the effects of the injury. The correct answer is D. The correct answer is that medical benefits include services that are medically necessary and reasonably required to cure or relieve the effects of a compensable injury under RIGL 28-33. Reason A is not correct. Coverage is based on employer-designated panel requirements, not just the employee's preference. Reason B is not correct. Emergency treatment alone does not encompass the full scope of ongoing care required by statute. Reason C is not correct. Diagnostic-only coverage is too narrow since treatment services are also required. Question 12. Under RIGL 28-33-8B, after receiving notice of an employee's compensable injury, an employer must provide a panel of preferred providers within how many days? A. 5 business days. B. 10 business days. C. 7 calendar days. D. 14 calendar days. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is that employers must furnish a preferred provider panel within 7 calendar days of notice under RIGL 28-33-8 Reason A is not correct. 5 business days is not recognized by the statute's 7 calendar day requirement. Reason B is not correct. Statute specifies calendar days, not business days, and sets a shorter time frame. Reason D is not correct. 14 days exceeds the statutory deadline. Question 13. Under RIGL 28-33-8A, an employer's preferred provider panel must include at least how many physicians? A. 1 physician from each specialty. B. 5 physicians. C. 3 physicians. D. 7 physicians in total. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is that the panel must include at least 3 physicians, as specified in RIGL 28-33-8A. Reason A is not correct. While specialties matter, the requirement is a minimum number of physicians, not 1 per specialty. Reason B is not correct. The statute sets the minimum at 3, not 5 physicians. Reason D is not correct. 7 exceeds the statutory minimum for preferred providers. Question 14. A carpenter fractures his ankle at work. The employer's workers' compensation insurer participates in a preferred provider network PPN. The carpenter schedules non-emergency follow-up care with an out-of-network orthopedic specialist without employer referral. Under RIGL 28-33-8, what applies to the reimbursement of that specialist's services? A. The injured worker may only receive care from an in-network provider for non-emergent services. B. The injured worker may select any physician for non-emergent services, but the insurer will pay only customary charges. C. The injured worker may seek non-PPN specialist care without restrictions if medically required. D. The injured worker must choose a PPN provider for non-emergent care or risk a 20% reduction for out-of-network services. The correct answer is D. The correct answer is that non-emergency care must be obtained from PPN providers, or else reimbursement is reduced by 20% under RIGL 28-33-8, which allows employers to require use of network providers and impose penalties for unauthorized outside care. Reason A is not correct. While the insurer encourages network use, it does not strictly prohibit out-of-network treatment, but penalizes it. Reason B is not correct. Insurer payment is not limited to customary charges. The law prescribes a specific reduction percentage for unauthorized care. Reason C is not correct. Even medically required services outside the PPN are subject to the 20% reduction if not authorized by referral. Question 15. An assembly line worker seeks non-emergency physical therapy from an out-of-network clinic without an employer referral. After submitting the claim, which outcome aligns with the PPN referral requirement under RIGL 28-33-8? A. Insurer will deny all claims for services provided outside the PPN regardless of referral status. B. The insurer may accept a retroactive referral from the employer to authorize out-of-network treatment. C. The insurer reduces payment by 20% for services rendered by unauthorized by PPN providers. D. The insurer must pay full by PPN negotiated rates for unauthorized treatments submitted within 30 days. The correct answer is B. The insurer may accept a retroactive employer referral to legitimize out-of-network services. RIGL allows retroactive authorization within a specified timeframe to avoid penalties. Reason A is not correct. The law does not mandate outright denial. It allows retroactive referrals and penalty reductions instead. Reason C is not correct. A payment reduction applies when no referral is provided, but this choice ignores the referral remedy. Reason D is not correct. Full PPN rates are only paid for authorized network care. Unauthorized services do not qualify even if timely submitted. Question 16. A factory worker suffers a deep laceration and goes to the nearest hospital emergency department, which is not part of the employer's PPN. Under Rhode Island workers' compensation law, how should those emergency services be reimbursed? A. Insurer may apply PPN penalties to emergency services. B. Services are reimbursable at the reasonable and necessary rate without network penalty. C. Insurer must deny charges if provider was not in PPN due to no referral. D. Insurer may pay only 50% of billed charges by non-PPN in emergency. The correct answer is B. Emergency care cannot be subject to PPN restrictions under RIGL. The insurer must cover reasonable and necessary charges for emergency services, even if the provider is out of network. Reason A is not correct. PPN penalties do not apply to emergency services under the statute. Reason C is not correct. Denial is not permitted for emergency treatment regardless of network status. Reason D is not correct. There is no statutory 50% cap for emergency services. Full reasonable charges apply. Question 17. An injured warehouse worker's physician prescribes an experimental electrotherapy device not listed in the fee schedule. Under the reasonable and necessary standard in Rhode Island workers' compensation, how will coverage be determined? A. Insurer must approve any treatment ordered by the treating physician. B. Insurer may deny treatments not listed in fee schedule regardless of necessity. C. Insurer may require independent medical exam for initial treatment approval. D. Insurer pays only treatments proven reasonable and necessary for work-related injury. The correct answer is D. Coverage requires demonstration that a treatment is reasonable, necessary, and work-related. Experimental devices not meeting that standard can be denied despite physician order. Reason A is not correct. Physician orders are not automatically binding. Necessity must still be established. Reason B is not correct. Fee schedule absence alone is not a basis for denial if medical necessity is proven. Reason C is not correct. An independent exam may be requested but is not required for every novel therapy. Question 18. A delivery driver requests a motorized wheelchair from a DME supplier. What must the provider submit to the workers' compensation insurer to secure coverage under InsRI-WC18 A. Pre-authorization and documentation of medical necessity must be obtained before coverage. B. Equipment may be provided upon worker's request, then retrospectively reviewed. C. No specific authorization is needed for items under $500. D. Equipment is always covered if prescribed by any provider. The correct answer is A. Durable medical equipment requires prior authorization and supporting medical necessity documentation under the statute before insurer coverage is approved. Reason B is not correct. Retrospective review is insufficient. Prior authorization is mandated. Reason C is not correct. There is no statutory cost threshold exempting DME from authorization requirements. Reason D is not correct. Coverage is not automatic. Medical necessity and authorization are prerequisites. Question 19. A landscaper has completed 12 of the 15 prescribed physical therapy sessions but still has lingering pain. The treating physician requests 3 additional sessions and the insurer questions the necessity. Under utilization review concepts, what action may the insurer take? A. The insurer must authorize all prescribed sessions without review. B. Insurer may initiate a utilization review to assess necessity of additional sessions. C. Disputed sessions must be approved by the workers' compensation court prior to treatment. D. The worker may pay out of pocket for extra sessions without review. The correct answer is B. An insurer may invoke utilization review to evaluate whether requested additional physical therapy sessions meet reasonable and necessary criteria under the statute. Reason A is not correct. Prescriptions are subject to review. Automatic authorization is not mandated. Reason C is not correct. Court approval is not required before invoking utilization review for additional sessions. Reason D is not correct. Out-of-pocket payment does not address insurer's right to review necessity. Question 20. A machinist injured his back and the treating physician prescribes a 30-day opioid regimen. To comply with Rhode Island workers' compensation opioid risk controls, what must the insurer require before filling this prescription? A. Insurer must cover opioids for at least 30 days before review. B. No pre-authorization is needed for any prescriptions under workers' compensation. C. Insurance is not permitted to impose quantity limits on acute opioid prescriptions. D. Prior authorization and opioid management review are required for chronic opioid use. The correct answer is D. For opioid prescriptions exceeding an acute period, the insurer must obtain prior authorization and conduct an opioid management review to mitigate risk and ensure appropriateness. Reason A is not correct. Coverage is not automatic for the first 30 days. Review criteria apply sooner for safety. Reason B is not correct. Controlled substances under workers' compensation are subject to review and authorization. Reason C is not correct. Statutory guidelines allow insurers to impose limits and require reviews even for acute prescriptions. Enjoyed this practice test? Tap like, hit subscribe, and share it with a classmate. Got a question we should tweak? Comment below, we read them all. Find full practice exam books in the description or at ExamPrep.School.